Hello and welcome to this short little video on critical thinking slash analysis, or as I like to call it, when in doubt, think it out. Yeah, that's kind of cheesy, but let's get to it. Critical thinking is super important, simply because it is the only way that you are going to really be able to move forward in your life and achieve greater things, is if you can learn how to think critically. Now that may seem like a big statement, but it's really not. A lot of the issues that we face in the world today is because people lack the ability to critically think. Okay, they rely too much on other aspects, and we get into all sorts of troubles over that. So let's go ahead and look at this when in doubt thing. Critical thinking does not use emotions, and it does not consider social aspects such as opinions, relationships, and reputations. While opinions are important, while relationships are important, and reputation is important, they are not aspects of critical thinking. Critical thinking is not these things. So let's talk about, give an example here of how opinions, relationships, and reputation can get in the way of a problem. Okay, so here's an example. My favorite baseball team is the Atlanta Braves. So if I state as a fact that the Braves are the best team in baseball, and people say, oh, why is that? And I say, because that's my opinion. Well, that doesn't make it true. Just because I think they're the best team doesn't make them the best team. So again, if we go back to opinions, it's not really my opinion that makes something better or not. Okay. Well, what about relationships? Well, let's say this. Let's say that my wife is a huge Braves fan, and I could care less about baseball, but it's important to her. So therefore, in order to increase my relationship and have a good relationship with my wife, I will say, yes, the Braves are the best because I want to have a good relationship. Well, is that really the best way to approach my viewpoint on the Braves? Why do you think the Braves are the best? Well, because I want to have a good relationship with my wife and she thinks they're the best. Maybe that's not the reason why you should think that they're the best. Is that really the best way to look at that? Okay, now let's look at one more. Reputation. Okay, well, what does that have to do with anything? So, let's say I'm walking down the street wearing a Braves shirt, because I have a few of those, and someone says, ooh, he is really awesome. He must be really a good guy because look at that, he's wearing a Braves shirt. Okay, I could be a complete jerk. I could be an awful human being and still like the Braves, okay? Just because I like a certain thing that is maybe popular doesn't necessarily make me a good person. So if we're trying to figure out the question of who is the best baseball team, we can't really use our opinions or the fact that we think that way because we want people to like us, either from a reputation or a relationship point of view. So what is critical thinking? It's really thinking based on evidence and logical reasoning. So we really kind of have to take emotion and throw it out the window, and our biases and maybe some of the things that we were just brought up believing for any number of reasons, and look and think about it on its own from evidence and from using logical reasoning. So another example. Sometimes we have this big debate. Vaccines. There are people who are very much against vaccines and people who are very much for vaccines. So if you can ask someone, hey, why are you against vaccines? And they say, well, it's because I believe. Okay, there's your first thing. I believe or I think. That is an opinion. That's not using critical thinking. Your opinion does not necessarily matter whether it doesn't prove whether vaccines are good or bad. Your personal opinion does not back up that and will not convince anybody else of that fact. Okay, that's not using evidence, that's not using logical reasoning. So anytime someone starts a sentence with I think or I believe, you can recognize, oh, that's an opinion, and therefore, good for you, you have an opinion. I may have a different opinion. You're not going to convince me. Okay, so how can we figure out if vaccines are good or bad? Okay, well, we would have to use evidence and logical reasoning. Someone says, well, I saw something on the internet and it said that vaccines cause autism. Okay, then you can say, really? What else did you find that backed that up? And they may say, what do you mean? And you can say, what other sources did you find that shows there's a relationship between vaccines and autism? Well, I found this one article. Okay, well, again, is that really the one source enough? Is that source reliable? Again, we go back to logical reasoning. We may have found some evidence, but is it logical? Did we find other things to back it up? Okay, oops, wrong button. Whoop, back here. So, to wrap things up, critical thinking is thinking for yourself. Okay? Don't rely on the opinions of others. Don't necessarily even rely on what you were maybe even told as a kid, because we are learning new things. Okay? You need to think for yourself while opening your mind to new possibilities based on the evidence. One of the most important things and amazing thing that happens in college is when I see students that come in with these huge biases on certain topics, and as they start to do research and start to actually critically think, they realize, I may be wrong, or I may not really be as strong on this as I think, or this may be more complicated than I want to initially believe. It's very easy for us to just stick to our opinions and beliefs on what we feel, and sometimes when we do critical thinking, it can make us uncomfortable because we may recognize that, you know what, there may be more. But if we can get more people to think critically about things, and instead of just arguing over your opinions, think how much better the world would be.